everyone, my name is Al D, and today I'll be talking about The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins, a Hunger Games spin-off novel. I just love the Hunger Games trilogy and now this spin-off book so much, and I don't have a lot of people to talk to about them in real life, so I'm doing a book review, and maybe someone that read it and wants to geek out over them like I do. So this is The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. Now, I read it on my Kindle because I didn't want to wait for the book to arrive when it came out. I didn't pre-order because I didn't think we'd have a pandemic, and then the pandemic happened and the book came out in the middle of May and everything was closed. So I just bought it on my Kindle and that's how I read it. So I don't have the copy to hold and be like, this is the book. But I think it's like 528 pages or something like that. So it's a pretty good read. The book, which by the way, the title, when I first saw it, I was like, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. It's very like cliche sounding, so I didn't know what to expect. I loved this book. There was a lot of mixed reviews, but I personally really, is this recording? Shit. Yep, it was recording. Anyways, like I was saying, a lot of people give it mixed reviews, and I can understand why. I personally loved it, and I'm going to be talking about the things that I loved about the book, the themes of the book, the characters that we met throughout, and I do say probably spoiler alert, because I can't talk about something without like spoiling it, because that's just me. So yes, spoiler alert beyond this point. So this book takes place 64 years before the first book, where we're introduced to the world of the Hunger Games and the story of the Hunger Games and Katniss Everdeen and all of that. It's actually the protagonist, the protagonist of the story is Coriolanus Snow, who you already know as President Snow from the trilogy. Yes, the evil, disgusting President Snow. He is the main character of this story. So immediately right off the bat, we kind of know that we're going into a story where the protagonist ends up being the antagonist of the story that we already know. You can say this is kind of an origins story, where the villain gets their background story and why they became to be the way that they are when we first meet them. The story begins with the news that the 10th Hunger Games are going to feature a contestant of the Hunger Games and a mentor. When we're introduced to in the trilogy that we know, that's already been in place for a few years. Well, a lot of years, for decades now. So we already know that if you are competing in the Hunger Games, you get a mentor. This book begins with how that became to be, the whole mentorship thing. And Coriolanus is 18 years old at this time in this book. He is about to finish high school, graduate high school, and he lives in the capital. The thing that kind of separates Coriolanus from the rest of his peers is that when the war happened with the rebels in the capital, his family lost pretty much everything, and his parents have died. He now lives with his grandmom and with his cousin Tigris, who we actually get to meet in the third book of the original Hunger Games. She is a stylist from the capital who actually helps hide Katniss during the war. That's how we met her in Mockingjay. She, along with Coriolanus, kind of take care of the family. They are pretty much the only people left in the Snow family. So it's really important already for Coriolanus to bring honor back to the Snow name. So we already know that the story starts with the high stakes for him. Now we get introduced to this mentorship program where a student from the school is going to be paired with a tribute from the games. And who does Coriolanus get paired up with? You guessed it, the female tribute from District 12. That I could, all the way over there, I saw it coming. It was down the street and I saw that coming. I think we all did. So by now we have the story set up. We have Coriolanus Snow, who is dirt poor, but he's pretending to be just like his peers with money and class and status. Now we have the stakes that they're going to be paired with a tribute. Coriolanus needs to do really well because the mentor of the victor of the Hunger Games, of the 10th Hunger Games, will get like a scholarship, an all-pay scholarship to college, and he'll be able to continue studying and make a name for the family again. So he really needs to win this thing. So the day of the reaping arrives, and we get to meet Lucy Gray Baird. Now, Lucy Gray is in a lot of ways very similar to Katniss, but she's very different in the way that Lucy Gray is actually a performer. She's a singer, she sings in a band, and she seems to do really well with cameras and with people. She's very charming, everything Katniss wasn't. So Lucy Gray at the reaping actually sets a snake to one of the girls who ends up being the mayor's daughter. And she sings a song, like she's getting reaped, you know, she's called for the games. You know, she's going to the games, and what does she decide to do? Sing a song to the public. That is some queen shit, queen status right there. So I'm already like, yes, Miss Lucy Gray, yes. And Coriolanus is watching this, and he's like, what the hell is going on? But it actually brings a lot of attention and a lot of coverage for Lucy Gray, which is good in the games. As we all know, it's also kind of like a popularity contest, and being from District 12, you're sometimes overlooked. So the more attention she gets, the more hopefully she'll get sponsors, and she'll be able to do well in the games, which is what Coriolanus needs. The biggest contrast for me of this book with the original trilogy is the way that people actually view the games in this story. Most of the Capitol hates the games. They don't really watch them. The districts are not forced to watch the games yet. And first of all, they don't even have the means to, because they're all poor, so they don't have televisions. So the games are kind of like, they're not as celebrated. Actually, they're not celebrated at all like they are in the trilogy that we already know, where it's like a huge party. It's like the World Cup, the Olympics. So by now, we know that they're just these games that are put into place to keep the districts from rebelling against the Capitol again, the way that they already did. So what makes this start to expand on the world is that the 10th Hunger Games is the first time we have mentors, and they introduce sponsorships, and they introduce giving gifts to the tributes while they're in the arena. If you remember, in the arena they can get like lotions, medicine, food, water. The 10th Hunger Games is the first time that this actually happened, because, and this is where it gets really messed up, the way the Capitol treated the tributes from the 10th Hunger Games down is just disgusting. They treat them like animals. They have them shackled and chained, thrown into a train compartment together. They're all just kind of squeezed in, sick. And then they get put into a zoo and a monkey cage. They're just thrown into an empty zoo, and that's where they live until the Hunger Games take place, and then they go into the arena. So it's not like this luxurious Capitol welcome that they get in the current trilogy that we already know, where they go and they get to eat all this food and they train and they're healthy and they're fit. It's the complete opposite. They are treated horribly, and the most messed up part for me is that they actually, like, half of them die, half of the tributes die before they even make it into the arena because of how poor the conditions that they keep them under are. So that was for me, like, it was a lot, because you get to read about their kids. Remember, you got to remember, they're from ages 12 to 18 when they get reaped. So it's like these little kids, and some of them are too weak because they don't feed them. They throw food at them, they just throw bread at them like they're animals, and they have to kind of like fight for it. And then they just get thrown into the arena. So by the time they're in the arena, they're weak, they're malnourished, they're wearing the same clothes they were already wearing. They don't give them uniforms or anything. So whatever you wore to the reaping, to the day that you got picked, is what you wear in the arena. So all of this was hugely different from the trilogy that we already know. It is the complete opposite. And I loved seeing that, because I love seeing the origin of things. And then Coriolanus and Lucy Gray form a bond. They have to get to know each other, because she's relying on him, he's relying on her to do well so that he can get that scholarship and get money and get honor back to the Snow name. So they're both relying on each other, and they both have a lot at stakes with each other. So Coriolanus actually does a great job trying to keep Lucy well fed. He keeps her her spirits up, her hopes up. And they actually do a really good job at the interviews where she's introduced to the rest of the nation and she sings another song. By the way, this book has a lot of lyrics, which I'm cool with, but if I don't know the song, I'm just gonna kind of like skim through the song. If I don't know the melody, I'll just like, or I'll read it like a poem, and sometimes I don't get the meaning of it because I'm like, okay, brother, okay, cool, song, let's get to the meat of the story. So there's a lot of lyrics in the book, but I can't wait to hear them in the movie adaptation so that I can actually put a melody to them. Also, side note, this is really cool. Lucy Gray wrote The Hanging Tree, which is the song that Katniss Everdeen sings in the trilogy. Are you, na 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 na, when I strung up a man. And then the song is about like coming to the hanging tree where they hang a man for a crime. And in the book, we get to meet the man that is hung because of the crimes. My nerd brain was like oozing everywhere. It's that type of shit that I love, like the little Easter eggs and the little like pickups that you grab from the original story, and then you get to see like how it's developed. Nut. So good. We are also introduced to Sejanus Plinth. Sejanus Plinth is a peer of Coriolanus Snow, but he's actually from the districts, but his family got rich, so they moved to the capital. So Sejanus Plinth is undercover rebel. Undercover for a bit, but then shit goes down. Now Sejanus Plinth is kind of the black sheep of Coriolanus's peer group. He doesn't belong because he is completely against everything. And the difference, Coriolanus knows that what they're doing is wrong, but he doesn't care because there's a lot at stake for him. Coriolanus cares about Coriolanus. Sejanus Plinth cannot compromise his morals or his rebel heart. In the midst, we're also introduced to Dr. Gall, who is... So Dr. Gall is a doctor. She's a doctor who experiments with animals and with humans and patients, and she mixes things up. She makes hybrids of things. She is a terrible human being. And she's got her eye on Coriolanus because she knows that Coriolanus is capable of anything in order to reach success. So through the book, she pops in and out, kind of just showing how evil she is. She's testing on these animals. She takes one of Coriolanus's peers and experiments on her. And during the games, she actually introduces these snakes into the game to kill as many tributes as they can. So basically, if you remember in the trilogy, the arena has not only the tributes to kill each other, but there's all these outside forces as well. And now, if you remember in the trilogy, they only mention that Haymitch was the victor, and then there was Katniss Everdeen, and then that was it for victors that are alive from District 12. So I immediately thought, oh, she doesn't win. She doesn't make it in the end. Like she's, you know? And then the rest of the book, I thought it was going to be Coriolanus trying to find an alternative way to bring honor to the Snow name. Wrong. So Lucy Gray actually wins the Hunger Games. What? I guess I could have seen it coming, but then at the same time, I was trusting Suzanne Collins when she said there were no living victors of District 12 other than Haymitch and Katniss and Peeta. So she wins the games. I'm like, whoa, what the hell's gonna happen now? But Coriolanus cheats to help Lucy Gray in the games, and they get caught. Lucy Gray gets sent back to District 12 because this is another difference. The victors don't get to come back to the capital. They just get shipped back to the district they come from, and then they rot over there. So they send her back to District 12, and Coriolanus gets called into the principal's office, and the principal's basically like, we found out what you did, you cheated, the only option that you have is you have to become a peacekeeper. A peacekeeper is basically a police officer, and you start like today. So the latter part of the book is Coriolanus Snow as a peacekeeper, and he chooses to go to District 12 to do his training. District 12. Why would he go to District 12? Because that's where Lucy Gray is. And eventually meets up with Lucy Gray again. So Coriolanus goes back to District 12. And he eventually finds Lucy Gray again. He goes to see her play with her band. He becomes friends with the bandmates. And Sejanus Plinth actually follows as well, and he becomes a peacekeeper also. So he's a peacekeeper. They're both peacekeepers, and they kind of become friends with Lucy Gray and her family, which is all made up with the band. There's some boy drama involving a guy from District 12 that Lucy Gray was involved with. So there's that triangle love story that we have to have because, hey, it's a young adult's book at the end of the day. But I was glad that doesn't actually hold on to that for too long. It's just kind of, he's there, the second guy. And yes, he causes some problems here and there, but it's more than just the love story, I guess. And that's what I've always liked about the Hunger Games, is that at least in the books, it was never the sole focus of the story. We also get to know a little bit of why President Snow hates Mockingjays and why he has such disdain for them. He actually has always hated them, but he hates the fact that they are not able to be controlled. So now we get to know why President Snow has such issues with control and issues with Katniss, because he can't control these things. Katniss could not be controlled. The Mockingjays could not be controlled. They're not supposed to exist. They're a mistake. And for him, it's like they're not following in the pattern, I guess, that he needs to have follow for control and order. There's a huge point in the book where he betrays Sejanus Plinth and actually ends up getting him killed. And he uses a Mockingjay to record Sejanus Plinth and to incriminate him for something. And they actually hang Sejanus Plinth. And it's a very, very messed up point in the book. And that's when I kind of realized that President Snow was always meant to be the villain. There were almost no redeeming qualities to his character other than maybe just his want for survival and for a better life, I guess. At what cost, you know? He doesn't have a moral compass. And in the end, it's what gets him to power. So good for him. At the end of the book, the final chapter is actually, in my opinion, so well written. So we have Coriolanus and Lucy Gray. Coriolanus thinks that his life is about to be over. He ends up killing the mayor's daughter by accident, and they also kill the guy that Lucy Gray used to be involved with. So he thinks that they're gonna find his fingerprints on the guns and his life is over. So him and Lucy Gray run away, right? So they're running away. They reach this little cottage where they had been to before, and they actually find the guns. The guns that Coriolanus thought were going to incriminate him. So by now, he didn't want to run away. He doesn't actually love Lucy Gray, I don't think. He just didn't see another way out, and he ran away with her. Now he sees the guns, and he's like, crap. The guns are here. I'm not going to be incriminated for this. I can destroy the guns. I can throw them into the bottom of the river. No one will ever find them. Lucy Gray realizes, oh crap, he doesn't have a reason to run away anymore. He can just kill me and leave me here, and then he'll go back to District 12. No one will ever question it. He'll continue to be powerful and grow. She realizes this, and she says, hey, I'll be right back. I'm gonna go. I think she went to pick up some Katniss. I don't know. She made up some bullshit excuse, and she leaves the cottage, and he starts to take it all in that he doesn't need to be there anymore. And it's like a switch where he's like, I don't need Lucy Gray anymore. He picks up the guns and goes outside and starts frantically looking for Lucy Gray. And he starts shooting just in the air, like trying to get her, because she's now in his way for him to become powerful. Because as long as Lucy Gray is alive, there will be someone that can incriminate him and get in the way of what he wants. Well, he goes crazy looking for her. The Mockingjays are singing. He is going manic, just shooting randomly everywhere, going crazy. And he never finds her. He never finds her. He gives up. He gets bit by a snake. And it's implied that she somehow set the snake up. But by this point, Coriolanus is so filled with anger and rage that he's not a reliable narrator anymore. So he ends up leaving because he's so exhausted and he's bit by a snake. So he leaves and goes back to District 12, accepts a position with the Capitol, gets sent back to the Capitol, and it ends with him killing his old principal. Principal Highbottom was the one responsible for him being caught for the cheating, and so he's the one who had sent him away. So Coriolanus gets his revenge, poisons him, kills him. And it ends with Coriolanus just basically knowing that he's on his way up and there's nothing that is going to stop him. And it's true, because he ends up being the president at what cost? But it also makes me wonder how much more messed up shit he did in the time frame from the 10th Hunger Games to when we met him and he's already the powerful dictator that he is. It just makes me think, like, how many other people did he step over? Like, how many Lucy Grays were there? That is the book in a nutshell. I personally loved the details. I loved the expansion of the world. I loved getting to know a little bit more as to why the world that we're introduced to is the way it is. And I also love President Snow's character, because we already know how he ends. So we don't have a lot of hope in him redeeming himself, but we're still tuned in. We still want to know why he is the way he is. And it all comes down to power. So that is pretty much it, my scatterbrained review of The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Susan Collins. If you like this, or if you read the book and you have some thoughts of your own, feel free to comment. Let me know what you thought, if you agree or disagree with some of my points. And yeah, bye.